Um, Good evening, everyone. My name is Robertson Castor. I am the Senior Project Manager overseeing this project for the City of Boston through the Public Facilities Department. Thank you for joining us tonight to discuss the BCYF Dorchester Community Center. This is our fourth community meeting, and we're excited to share the progress in the design phase, as well as some more updates that we would definitely love to have some community input on. Go right to the next slide. I just want to let everyone know that there are 4 options for translation: Cape Verdean Creole, Spanish, Vietnamese, and Haitian Creole. All these can be obtained by clicking on the globe icon or the interpretation button, whatever is familiar if you're on a mobile device or on a computer. And there you'll be able to select the preferred language so that you can hear the same presentation in that preferred language. With that said, I do ask all speakers and remind all speakers to speak slowly so that the interpreters can properly and stay on the same pace with us to make sure that the message is delivered clearly. Next slide, please. I'd like to take this time to introduce the team. I myself, Robertson Castor from the Public Facilities Department, our Director Carrie Griffin, who was not able to join us today, Evan Brinkman, Assistant Director of Design, Patrick Mulvey-Welsh, Assistant Director of Construction, Michael Susi, our Senior Review Architect. With that, I'll hand it over to BCYF, Commissioner Rivera.
Thank you, Robertson. I'm Marta Rivera, the Commissioner of BCYF. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. This evening with me, I have our Chief of Staff, Annie Chin, our Program Information Manager, Sandy Holden, and Program Manager, Erin McCarthy. Our Director of Operations, Eddie McGuire, is not with us. Neither is Sean Webb, who is the Regional Operations Manager for this area, nor Nadine Johnson-Jesenik, who is the Aquatics Regional Operations Manager. They're all at the Matterhorn, actually, at an event revolving around swimming, the Swim Safe Initiative. So we're excited about that. And Adi Pomales is the Grove Hall Senior Center Director. She's not with us this evening either. So I'll turn over to, I think, Brett.
Yes, thank you, Marta, and good evening, everybody. Thanks so much for being with us tonight. I'm Brett Benson. I'm a principal at UTL. We're the architects who are working on the design of this project. And tonight you'll hear from my colleague, Petra Jeremová, and myself, but we're also joined by the rest of our team, some of whom you'll be familiar with, Andrew Ngure and Alessandro Ricciardi. We're also joined by our landscape architect tonight, Shauna Gillis-Smith of Ground Inc., and you'll be hearing from her a little bit later on tonight too. We also wanted to thank all of our members of the CEC for being here and looking forward to a good meeting tonight. Why don't we move on to the next slide?
Thank you, Brett. Before we go on to the next slide, I do want to open the floor to the elected officials who are joining our meeting today. I'd like to start off with Councilor Anderson.
Good afternoon, everyone. Apologies, took me a while to come off of mute. I'm actually mobile on my way to an event, and so we'll be in this meeting in my car for about an hour. Happy to be here listening. My staff will be joining when I'm exiting to take notes. Looking forward to engaging, and any correspondence, please, or inquiries, please feel free to email me. Thank you so much, everyone, for hosting. Commissioner Michael Zu, Annie, I see you here. Thank you so much for all of this, and looking forward to supporting in whatever way I can.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other elected officials? I believe Councilor Worrell is on us with us as well.
Yes, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Councilor Brian Worrell here. Just excited for this community center. It's long overdue in the Grove Hall or just Dorchester area. I'm excited about this conversation, and I think this is a great opportunity for center speaks to the needs of the whole family. So I'm looking to whether it's athletics for youth, seeing if we could prioritize some space for daycare options. I think that this is an opportunity to fit this in our new Grove Hall Center. So looking forward to the conversation. I just want to thank the administration for being here and for holding this meeting with community members. And thank you to all the community members who've long advocated for this space. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor, and I'm happy to have both of you here with us today. And with that, I'll turn it over to Brett, and who can speak to our agenda and go through our conversation tonight.
Great. Thanks so much, Robertson. So tonight, we've gone through the introductions. We want to just remind everybody, as we do at the beginning of all of our meetings, about the schedule and the process. We also wanted to give everybody an update on our community engagement. We've just started our second round of focused workshops and had a great meeting with a number of seniors at the Grove Hall Senior Center, and we have a few upcoming events that we want to talk about. We are going to go through the floor plans for the building, and Petra is going to walk everybody through the building in a floor plan format. And then Shauna will talk a little bit about our landscape concept, and then I'll round it out talking about parking. So with that, let me hit it over to Petra.
Great. Thanks, Brett. Great to be with you all tonight. So this graphic represents our project schedule for the community center and the general time frame that we have for community input. And some of you have seen this before in our earlier meetings, but we just wanted to put this up here again to remind everybody where we are in the process. We are currently just past the midpoint of the early design phase, which is approximately 9 months long. This phase follows the 2022 study that we completed for PFD and BCYF for the community center site and program. And I won't read off all the different activities that we're going to do under these various phases, but the early design phase, just as an example, includes confirming site conditions and confirming activities to determine spaces. This is also the phase where most of the community input happens and has been happening. And we got some really great feedback about program and activities that people were interested in our last round of workshops that we worked into the design. The next phase of the timeline includes a technical design, which we will move into kind of after early design phase, and will include the detailed development of building plans and detailed coordination with consultants. And then after that is construction and opening. So zooming into the community input timeline, as I mentioned, we're just kind of past the midpoint of early design, and we are in the process of conducting a series of workshops. As you can see, kind of we are here in the midst of the workshops. We're following up with the same groups that we spoke to towards the end of last year. We spoke with everybody about activities that they were interested in previously, like I mentioned. And now we're speaking with folks more about the design of the building and what they really want to see in their space. And following this round of workshops, we will have additional community meetings to inform you all about the design as it develops for the building. And we really hope to get some really great feedback along the way. And I'll talk a little bit more about the community engagement that we've been doing. As I mentioned, we're in the midst of the second round of community workshops. We had a great, productive, and very fun workshop with folks at the Grove Hall Senior Center on May 6th. We have an upcoming pop-up at the Vine Street Community Center, which we would love it if you all came and used it as an opportunity to share additional thoughts about the design of the community center. It's happening this Saturday, May 18th from 11 to 12:30. And we are also working on scheduling additional workshops at the Frederick and Burke, similar to last time. Just to go through the kind of goals of the workshops that we're conducting right now, the goal really is to understand and document the look and feel that community members would prefer for the interiors of the new community center. And the activities that we are doing with the group to kind of figure out what people are interested in is using a mood board to select desired look and feel for the interiors, and to understand transparency, what level of transparency folks are interested from inside to outside. And then a second activity includes building your own space. It's kind of a fun activity where you're building your own space inside a shoebox by placing activity areas and selecting interior finishes. And so far for at the Grove Hall Senior, we've had 30 participants, so a really great turnout. We've collected a lot of different opinions and thoughts about what the community center should look like. And then, as I mentioned before, the Vine Street Community Center pop-up is upcoming, and if you can, you should all attend to share your thoughts.
Hi, Petra. Before you jump forward, I just want to give a chance for Senator Liz Miranda. Sorry I didn't get it announced earlier, but also Senator Liz Miranda has been able to join us today. Senator, would you like to say a few words?
I'm actually on two different meetings. White Stadium is on tonight, and also the Grove Hall Community Center. But I want to thank my friend Isa, who reminded me to make sure I got on here. I'm just really excited. It's a long time coming. The people of Grove Hall deserve a state-of-the-art, high-quality community center. I'm a BCYF kid. I grew up in the Orchard Park Teen Center and Vine Street, and I couldn't imagine a life that I have now without community centers. So I'm super excited to be here. So I am paying attention. I am off camera, but I am here taking great notes. Okay. And if you guys could share the flyer for the 18th, I'd love to share it with the community.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Go ahead, Petra.
Great. So next we'll be walking through the floor plans for the building. We'll walk through the building has 2 levels for those who have not seen saw this last time. We have a ground floor and a second floor, and I'll walk through each one. So starting with the ground floor, maybe I should preface this by saying, we were happy to have questions or comments at the end, and we really look forward to everybody's feedback about the floor plans. And I did want to mention that, you'll see different spaces that are called out here. We haven't gotten into the kind of detailed design of those spaces. That's the reason that we're having these workshops, is to collect feedback about what people want the center to look like. So just keeping that in mind, that, we're excited to jump into the actual design of each individual space. But here you'll see the locations and kind of where the spaces are located in the building. So at the ground floor, the entry to the building is located off of a public plaza at the corner of Geneva and Normandy Streets. Our landscape architects, Ground Inc., will walk through the landscape in much more detail in just a few minutes. The lobby is right here. It's a double height space with a reception desk and views to the gym and to the pool. So when you walk in, you'll be able to see all those spaces and see a little bit into each space from the lobby. As you make your way around the elevator, which is this E behind the reception desk, there's the senior center right behind it. which is a room, a large space dedicated to senior programming during senior center hours. And the senior center will have a small conference room for private meetings and its own storage space. The senior center is connected to the flex community space with a movable dividing partition, which can be closed when senior activities and community classes or other activities are happening at the same time. And it can also be opened when there is a larger senior activity or multiple senior activities that need to take place. Or when a community meeting needs to happen in the evening, that might want to take up that whole space. Connected to the flex community space is the kitchen, which would have cooking equipment and set up for classes similar to what you may have seen at the Roxbury Boston Public Library location.
Oh, young man.
So it will be set up for teaching cooking classes, as I mentioned. And then at the end of the hallway here, we have an art room. Oops, sorry. We have an art room that's really catering to any art activities.
Is it possible if everybody could mute themselves?
Sorry, I need to mute. If you wouldn't mind muting yourselves, if that would be great. And then at the very end of the corridor is an open stair that connects up to level 2, and the open stair is fully visible down the hallway. Across from the art room is what we're calling the flex fitness space. It's a fitness space that's dedicated to flexible kind of classes, varying from yoga to Tai Chi to dance. Any variety of kind of group fitness classes could take place in there. In the center here, we have toilets that are serving most of this floor. And then right next to the kind of near the lobby and right next to the gym vestibule, we have a cardio and weights area that's dedicated to, again, kind of cardio and weights equipment. The pool is located on the west side of the building here. It's a 5-lane competition pool. It has a 0 entry ramp. That's making it possible for anybody with mobility impairments or for children or others taking swimming lessons to use it and to get into the pool more easily. The access to the pool, if you're not going for a swim, is through, there's a corridor just above the stair at the lobby, and that lets you kind of bypass the locker rooms to get into the pool. It also provides access to the gender neutral, these rooms labeled WC, they're actually shower and changing rooms that will be gender neutral. And right off of this corridor. And then further down the corridor, we have typical gendered locker rooms for anybody who wants to use those. And then further north is a back of house area serving building operations. The gym, the gym is accessible off of the gym vestibule, off of the lobby. It provides a full high school regulation court and 2 middle school size cross courts, which are the gym is able to be divided with a dividing curtain. And at the floor, we have marked out a walking track that could be used kind of outside of group sports hours. Moving up to level 2, there's the connecting stair from the lobby that takes you straight up to level 2. You have a view into the gym at the top of the stair. Walking down the corridor, there's the tech lab, which is a kind of a computer lab available for people to use. Across the hallway, we have the teen center, which again, as I mentioned, the spaces are not designed yet. So there will be a lot of different components to the teen center, but right now we just have the location shown here. There's toilets kind of in the center of the floor. And at the far end of the hallway, we have after school care. And across the hallway from that, we have the maker space. And from there, I will turn it over to our landscape architects, Shauna with Ground Inc. to talk about the landscape concept.
Thank you very much, Petra, and I'm excited to be here with everyone today. So I have 6 or 7 slides to talk about the overall landscape. This slide is looking at the landscape in the context of the surroundings. And one thing that that was important to us, and I believe to many of you, is that we are planting a lot of trees along the street in order to improve the urban heat island condition. So all the way on all 3 streets, we have street tree planting in good good soil conditions with irrigation, so that they will thrive and provide shade, and over time. And along Geneva, we're more or less pairing them with the trees across the street, the library and the senior center across the street. And then we'll zoom in a little minute to different areas, but we have a plaza across that Petra had mentioned, more or less at the corner of Normandy and Geneva, and are improving the existing crosswalk across Normandy Street. But we're also adding a new crosswalk across Geneva at that corner to connect to the public space outside of the existing library. So Petra, maybe we can zoom in a little bit to some of the different areas. So I mentioned most of these, and we'll go through these areas in general, but the plaza that we had talked about, which we'll zoom in a minute, street trees on all sides. At the back area along Old Fields is a small parking lot, so for the staff, and planted buffers along the edges, and then a small little art room outdoor area that we're sort of calling the messy backyard, that we'll get to in a moment. So looking at the plaza, what we were trying to do is both make movement really easy from the corner and movement directly in is easy as well. We have a bus drop off as well as parking spaces along Geneva. We've bumped out the sidewalk a little bit in order to increase the green space and sitting right at that corner, as well as a traffic calming, and then are providing benches both with backs and without throughout this green planted area, similar to what you see on the left-hand side. And one thing that we wanted to note is that we know this is a very urban condition. And so concerns such as skateboarding or loitering are ways that are things that we're taking into consideration in terms of will be in terms of the overall detailing of how we treat these benches. Also providing backs and arms for the comfort of seniors and others, which also helps with as skateboarding deterrence as well. Next slide, Petra. And then looking along Old Fields. So because of the residential condition across the street, we not only have the street trees along the street, but are softening the edges of the building with another level of planting directly against the building and against the parking area, a very small parking area, which you can see in this location. There will be a gate to get in, an arm gate to get into the parking space, where we have a handicap van space located in this location. And then, as mentioned, we'll have a low fence and planting screening, not high enough that it becomes a visual barrier that somebody can hide behind, but again to soften the edges. And then the area that I described as the messy back room, we have a space between the existing auto body shop and the building, and this happens to be directly outside of the art room. So we thought we would take advantage of this space to create an outdoor space directly off the art room that that can be used for all sorts of crafts or lunches. It's kind of a nice size. It's about 2,000 square feet overall. Actually, it's kind of bigger than it really looks. And including the planted areas. And this area, we will also have gates into it from either end. So it, again, won't be a place that people will loiter or sleep. And
all right, I'll take it from here. Thanks, Shauna. I have the exciting job of presenting our parking analysis to everybody. Thanks for sticking with us so far. We did work with a consultant called VHB. They're traffic engineers, traffic consultants, to help us understand a little bit of the parking demand and the available parking around the community center. So they did some direct observations on the site last month, and based on their observations, they found that there are 150 unregulated parking spaces that are close by to our project for our project site, excuse me. Unregulated parking basically means that there's no time restrictions or residency restrictions on those parking spaces, that anybody is able to park there. And as part of that study, they did not include Old Fields Road or Bishop Smith Way, since those are primarily residential streets. And we didn't want to include that in our analysis when it comes to parking for the community center. So we can go to the next slide. So what they found is also in observing the project site that is currently, as all of you know, an empty lot and is used for parking by many people. They found that during the day, there were at most 45 vehicles that were being parked in that parking lot. And after school hours, and also after the senior center programming was completed, that number of vehicles dropped to 5 in that parking lot. So that really suggests that the demand in that parking lot, that is our site, is primarily driven by the school. It might also be driven by uses of the senior center. We do need to dig in a little bit more into that to try to fine tune how many folks are using the parking lot for the school versus how many are using it for the community center. But based on that, within the Burke High School, so along Washington Street, along the eastern edge of Geneva Avenue, areas that are about 2.5 minutes walk from the Burke, they found that there are 79 available parking spaces. So even if all of those all those cars that are using the site for parking now are displaced once the building is in place, there are 79 parking spaces available within a 2.5 minute walk of the Burke. And on this particular day, they found that 60 of those parking spaces were vacant, so that they were available and open for people to park in. And on the next slide, by a similar token, looking at streets that are within a 2.5 minute walk of the community center site, they found that there are 71 parking spaces available. And on that same days that they were visiting, 50 of those parking spaces were vacant and available as well. And so in total, we're finding that there's quite a bit of on-street parking that's available. It's within an easy walk of both the community center and the Burke High School. Let's go to the next one. So we also have found that based on similar community centers. So for example, Curtis Hall, which is in Jamaica Plain, and it does have a similar mix of program. It has a pool, it has a gym, it has some community spaces. It is a different size, it's a different neighborhood. So there are a lot of similarities, but a lot of important differences. But based on the programming at Curtis Hall, what weekday mornings are when we expect the community center to be the busiest. And so one thing that we want to talk about with everybody is how we think about regulating parking around the community center, and if that's a desired feature. So let's go to the next slide. So directly in front of the community center, as Shauna mentioned, we are planning the expanded curb line at the crossing to Geneva. But we're also planning a drop-off zone right in front of the front door to the community center. That's going to accommodate charter buses, so that if there are certain trips or visits that are planned, a charter bus could pull up and bring people to and from the community center. It will also accommodate the ride or any other drop-offs that folks using the community center are getting. That also allows space for 3 new handicap parking spaces along Geneva Avenue. That's directly in front of the front door and between the front door of the new community center and the crosswalk that's in front of the auto body shop. And that's in addition to 2 existing handicap parking spaces and a drop-off zone across Geneva Avenue, closer to the current Grove Hall Senior Center entrance, as well as the parking lot that currently is signed for library patrons only. So what we wanted to get some feedback from you all on, and let's go to the next slide, is how we want to think about parking and whether parking restrictions would be useful in the neighborhood or directly around the community center. For example, we could think about a 2 or 3 hour parking limit so that folks are able to use the community center for that amount of time. Folks who are maybe traveling to the Burke would not use parking spaces directly in front of the community center because that 3 hour turnover wouldn't encompass the full school day? Or do we want to look at some parking restrictions maybe that deal with time-based? Maybe there's no parking before 9 a.m. Most programming in the community center is going to be happening after that time. Most people who are using on-street parking for the high school are going to be there before 9 a.m. We also want to hear from everybody if the bus in the drop-off zone in front of the community center is going to be useful for patrons. And also, are some of those 3 restricted handicap parking spaces useful as well? So we want to kind of end this portion of the presentation with some questions, and we'll take some feedback. I know every time we talk about parking, everybody has a lot of opinions. So we're looking forward to hearing all of those from those on the call tonight.
And I just want to add on to what Brett said. Public Facilities has been in conversation with both BTD and Public Works about what measures can be done in the community, particularly around this intersection at Geneva Ave and Normandy Street. They've seen this preliminary plans and haven't provided any negative feedback. And we did flag some of the previous attempts by the community to make some changes to help with traffic flow in the area. They did say that nothing is off the table for consideration. So I just wanted to give that feedback that BTD and Public Works are aware of what we're looking at doing out here and how we can make this a safer intersection for folks not only commuting through, but also for patrons visiting the community center. With that said, of course, ideally, if we could have created more opportunity for parking on site, we would have. However, we find that we try to find the right balance between providing parking and providing programming. And we know how important programming is to the community. So we really tilted it towards programming to make sure that we can fit as much programming space as possible to create opportunities for various activities to take place at this community center. So those are the things that were taken into consideration when this design was laid out. I see a bunch of great questions coming up, and I agree with Brett. We'd like to really touch back on that feedback, but I'll dive into the next steps if you don't mind, Brett, just to give everyone a heads up on where we're going. Or do we go back a
Sounds
slide though? Is this the next slide, the graphic?
Yeah.
So we, as we mentioned, there's going to be another opportunity if you aren't able to get your voice across or get your feedback in today. Please, we encourage everyone to come out on Saturday to the Vine Street Community Center, where we'll be here. Everyone you see on this call from the design team will be present, and we'll be discussing the activities and look and feel of the shop as mentioned before by the design team. We're also meeting with the middle school, Frederick Pilot Middle School, as well as the Burke High School. We're doing similar activities with their students to get their feedback on a community center within their community. So great opportunities to get feedback, and then we'll definitely have more community meetings in the future, particularly as we get closer to wrapping up the design phase. So stay tuned for those opportunities to come out and meet the team and give us your thoughts. So I'll turn and open the floor first to questions, and as we're in the mix of questions, we'll definitely jump into some of the great questions that we're seeing pop up in the chat. But I'd like to turn the floor and give folks a chance to speak at this point. There are multiple avenues to provide that, so if you feel more comfortable putting your question in the chat, by all means, please do so. But if there's anyone who would like to share a comment or concern or feedback, we'd love to hear from you.
Robertson, maybe we can start with the questions that are in the chat.
Sure thing. So we'll scroll back up top. There's been some great things to find. First question that came up is, how high is the gym ceiling and will it allow for volleyball? For example, volleyball. I'll turn to the design team to that.
The short answer is yes. It'll be high enough to allow for volleyball and basketball and all of the major activities that happen typically in BCYF gyms.
Thank you, Brett. The next question I see up there is, how deep are you planting the trees? We've had issues of tree roots impacting sidewalks and making sidewalks too narrow for wheelchairs.
So what we're planning to, thank you very much for that question. I'm Shauna Gillismith, the landscape architect. What we're planning, we actually haven't picked the tree species yet, but what we do is we are planning structural soil that will extend below the sidewalk, so that we give significant capacity for the tree roots to expand and not disturb the sidewalk. And we're we appreciate that comment, and it's something that concerns us as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Shauna. Next few questions. Will Flex Space for Fitness have mirrors and a bar for dance?
Yes.
Thank you, Brett. Will the high school, library, and new community center look like each other, or is this a very modern outdoor design?
I think the answer to that one is it's too early to tell. We're still very much focused on the floor plans and our workshops to make sure that we're capturing all of the interior space planning items that we need to incorporate in the community center. And then in the future meetings, we're going to move on to what this looks like from the exterior.
Thank you. Are the courts gridded for multi-use or just for basketball?
So they'll be gridded for multi-use.
Are there multiple areas for sitting outside?
So the main areas for sitting outside are in the plaza area, and there's quite a lot of different pockets, as well as the art room area. We can look if there's spaces to put benches along the street in some places as well. They would need to be looking in, but if that makes sense, we can certainly look for that. I should also mention that even though it's not shown in the current plan. We will have bike racks, ample bike racks located around the perimeter, typically within that furniture zone, which is between the trees along around the perimeter of the building, so that to encourage people riding their bikes to get to the community center as well.
Thank you, Shauna. I see Councilor Anderson, you have your hand raised, so the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you so much, Robinson. A follow-up question to that. I noticed that, the design, and I heard Brett saying that in the next meeting we could talk a little bit more about the appearance on the outside. So I guess we can reserve most of this conversation to then. But really interested in maximizing on the space outside to create shading, not just trees, but actually furniture that could either be modular or just, fixed where there's shading or cooling for seniors. And I noticed that they're just, wooden benches, not comfortable for seniors, as well as no shading, no activity, no water feature, no cooling designs or features. Just thinking about how hot that area is, and in terms of the population that we're trying to serve. And then also just in terms of beautification, and to also include some art installation in there, and making more use of the outdoor space.
I think those are all excellent comments. I think we can work with the architecture team to see if there are other opportunities for shade. In terms of the benches, well, the examples that we showed were just flat, straight benches. We certainly don't want for that to be the overall character once we start developing it. We understand not only for seniors how important it is to have comfortable benches or comfortable seating that also has backs and armrests, so that to get up and get down. And I think I'm just going to jump ahead to something that I saw come into the chat as well. But in terms of the overall planting, we will have a varied palette. We want it to be easy to maintain, but the idea of introducing color and seasonality and flowering shrubs and perennials that can help activate and beautify. And I think the idea of looking at public art further, seeing what opportunities we have, is really a wonderful thing for us to think about going forward.
Thank you for being open. We have some designs, some renderings from Northeastern Architects students that does justice, provides shading, some water features, art. And as far as the landscape stuff, I'll leave that to you. But we have some ideas where we surveyed community and artists on ideas on how to do this with outdoor space. Would love to share them with you offline.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exciting.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll wrap up this one last question regarding the outdoor space from Senator Liz Miranda. And this one is there capacity to do urban gardening in that messy backyard, and maybe a mini stage for performances?
Yes. We'll have to look at the sun conditions for the urban gardening. We haven't done a shade study to check to see if we have enough sun to really grow things. So we'll look, and I think it would be fantastic, because that's a place that is sort of enclosed and safe. And absolutely, the idea, I think one of the things that we love about this is that it can be interpreted in a lot of different ways. So the idea of having a small performance stage out there is really pretty fantastic. I think the idea of a space that can be transformed by the youth and the people working in the center is really a nice opportunity as well. Potentially for seniors to come out and sit in the shade if it turns out it's more shady than sunny.
Thank you, Shauna. I see Jawan Skeens, you have your hand raised, so floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Good evening, neighbors. My name is Jawan Skeens. I am a candidate running for Massachusetts State Senate for the First Suffolk District. Although that does not include the Grove Hall area, I have been involved with the work of this community center when it was just activating its space as a vacant lot with Project Right. I just wanted to add, I'm really excited just to see these changes come into our community. What programs do you guys have around STEM education, engineering and trades along that nature, that's going to be involved inside of this building?
Question, I'll turn that to BCYF. Speak more about
Thanks for
programming.
the question. Hi, thanks, Robertson. Thanks for the question, Jawan. So if you see in the upstairs space, which is mostly where the youth and teen spaces, there is flex room, and there is essentially that's where we anticipate having STEAM programming upstairs.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your question, Joanne. Anyone else have their hand raised? I haven't seen any other hands go up. If not, I can go back to the chat. Once again, feel free to jump in and just raise your hand, and I'll make sure to give you the floor so you can speak. There was a question. There was actually a comment made regarding Washington Street and how there are multi-unit apartment buildings with no off-street parking, and there are several businesses who are busy that have customers that use that street parking. So just speaking to the complications or some of the challenges of parking in the community.
I think, Robertson, there was also, I think Mike was commenting on the fact that the housing and density doesn't compare to Curtis Hall. The reason we compared it to Curtis Hall is because it's an existing BCYF site that's comparable to what we're planning here, which is essentially the combination of one of our standalone sites with a pool. Curtis Hall is our only standalone site that has a pool. We either have pool facilities or oversee pools within BPS facilities. Again, Curtis Hall is comparable in that regard. And so with respect to what they have during the day, there's a variety of activities. I was trying to look on the website. Thanks, Sandy, for looking that up. So because they have a pool, of course, they have a variety of, lap swim time, play groups, walking track access, pickleball, and various other exercise classes, depending on the day. There's also computer time during the day at Curtis Hall. So that's just to give you a glimpse of some of the activity that happens during the day.
Thank you, Marta.
Answers the question. Oh, sorry, I was gonna say, I hope that answers the question. If there's follow-up, feel free to raise your hand or drop it in the chat.
Thank you.
Thanks, Robinson. I was wondering about a mindfulness room or office. I know that during our hearing, Commissioner, you mentioned a lot of collaboration with sort of, I guess, on-site mental health services. Since we're doing yoga and these other types of helpful classes, do we have a room dedicated to mindfulness or therapeutic services?
There is a flex space upstairs. One of the things that we tried to do, because there's limited space with a lot of requests for programming, was try to create as much flex space as possible and limit the number of rooms that were specifically created for like a dedicated function. We find that over time when we do that, if the function is no longer relevant, then it's really harder to repurpose the space, as opposed to building these flex spaces.
Unless, of course, it's part of the program, right?
Yeah, something like, again, sort of like the steam rooms, because there's certain kind of fixtures and things you need, and, access to a lot of outlets and that sort. So that's why you'll see there is dedicated for that STEAM and computer and technology space. But the flex space can serve multiple purposes, multiple uses, and that could certainly be something where someone could meet and hold either a group support group or individual session. So I can see certainly something like that happening in that space.
Have anyone brought up any ideas about a rooftop feature? Maybe it's like nightlife for seniors. Is that too much to ask?
No, so we had this design is scaled back from, we started sort of pie in the sky, everything, and then we did have to scale back. And so a rooftop garden was something that was in some of the earlier plans. And then as we started to look at cost and having to meet the budget, we did have to take the rooftop access and garden down.
Oh, I see. I said nightlife, like jazz, wine, not garden, but thanks. Seniors want that too.
We're hoping that the front entryway there that we're trying to create can be an opportunity for performance spaces, as well as maybe looking at that art room in the back, as Shauna had alluded to earlier.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Worrell, I see you have your hand up. The floor is yours.
Thank you. A great presentation. No, I do love the. I'm glad that we thought about the garden on the rooftop. But I mean, if we're not getting the garden, do we know if the roof is a reflective roof? Just want to think about making sure that we're making the roof climate resilient. And I know black roofs usually attract more heat to the neighborhood. So is it a reflective roof, or is it solar panels? What is on the roof?
Thanks for the question, Counselor. Yes, so the roof area will be a very high reflective surface so that we're mitigating some of the heat island effect. I think also those street trees that Shauna was pointing out earlier will help with the urban heat island effect as well. And we are certainly planning on making all of these rooftops solar ready so that the city has a separate process, which you're probably familiar with, for procuring solar panels, but we're going to do all of the steps that are required so that it is a very easy turnkey operation to install those solar panels.
Awesome, great to hear. And my advocacy commissioner, as you know, that was brought up during the budget hearing is just want to make sure that we, the flex spaces are able to be transitioned maybe from a daycare, a play area for our infants and toddlers. I think that when we're building public facilities, we have to have the whole family in mind. And the whole family in mind, kids need to be infants and toddlers before they become teenagers to be able to play basketball or to, jump into a 5-lane pool or to even learn STEM. Like they have to become their infants and toddlers first. So just want to make sure that we're creating space for the whole family and understanding that when we build those supports inside of our public facilities, we are prioritizing families here in the city of Boston. So I guess the question is those flex spaces on the second floor, are they fitted to could they be used for a daycare?
I was going to let Brett respond, but we do, the spaces can be used for a variety of programming. Right now, I don't believe it has the specs for an actual licensed daycare. And when we did the programming survey, there were a variety of uses that we inquired about. Daycare was not one of the ones that rose to the top. However, again, we agree we can provide programming during the day for children, family playtime, all of those things. But I don't believe that it has the specs for operating an actual licensed daycare in the space. And I'll defer to Ross and Brett for that.
Oh, and
Yeah, I think
I'll just follow. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Counselor. Sorry.
No, no, no. I'll wait.
No, I was just going to follow up with Marta, which is to say that that's correct. We haven't planned around a licensed daycare facility on the upper floor area, but it's something that we can look more carefully at so we can understand what the threshold steps would be to bring it to that level.
Yeah, and no, and I appreciate that because I know not only the city has made it a priority standing up the early early education, early childhood education department, also through the space grant. One of the industries that they prioritize for space grants what is a daycare. So knowing that we're trying to get daycares the funding to find space when we're building space, it's an opportunity to meet those demands and needs. So thank you.
Thank you, Counselor.
There was a question about the AC in the gym. So that is a yes, there will be AC in the gym. And so everyone knows that is something that is a priority for us, BCYF, as cooling centers. We have a few sites, just a few remaining sites that don't have AC, and those are on track to have AC through capital funds. And this is BCYF exclusive buildings, right? Not the ones that we operate within school facilities. I believe there are 15 community centers that are located within BPS facilities. BPS does not have AC, and a number of their centers. Actually, I don't think any of their gyms. But we are aiming, BCYF sites will have AC, and certainly this one will.
Thank you, Commissioner. There was a question brought up about Burke BPS allowing community to make use of the parking spaces. We have not confirmed this with the Burke or BPS, but that is a question that's being raised to them to see what accommodations they could potentially make for parking to assist with the parking situation. But that has not been confirmed with BPS at this time. So it's a question to be discussed. Other questions, the outdoor art area fenced in. I believe that's a yes, right? The outdoor art area would be fenced in and only
That's
accessible
correct.
through the community center.
That's right.
Will there be space for step, double dutch, and dance and music?
I don't know if
So
that's an
yes, we're
outside or an inside, but the answer is probably yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
I mean, those are
And-
all activities that we could do in the gym, and we presently do in many of our facilities in the gym.
Next question is there any facility space for cooking classes for youth and seniors?
Yeah, I can answer that one, Robertson. So we have included on the ground floor a community kitchen. It will be similar in layout to the nutrition lab that's on the second floor of the Roxbury Library, the BPL library. And that will have full appliances so that cooking classes can be had there, nutrition, teaching, and the like. That's going to be located, like I said, on the ground floor, right next to the senior center and the community room.
And I'm very excited for that. If you haven't been to the teaching kitchen, is that what it's called? Teaching kitchen? At the
Nutrition
kitchen
lab, they call
nutrition
it.
lab, great. At in Nubian Square over there at Dudley Library. It's a great use of space and wonderful space. So I'm looking forward to that.
Agreed. Another question we have is there room for flowers instead of trees to liven the neighborhood a little bit more?
And the reason that we have the trees along the street was so to facilitate movement, like right along the street edge, but there are pockets of planting adjacent to the building through around the whole building. So we will look at those areas to plant a much more varied flowering plant palette.
Thank you, Shauna. There was a question brought up earlier regarding potentially making Normandy a one-way. The question is, have folks identified that making Normandy one way as a priority for the city? Often when folks take an Uber or cab, There is no place to pull to the side. Instead, folks are blocking traffic and it's dangerous to cross. If we imagine that folks will be walking across that street often, and or our children or elders getting dropped off, is there a capacity for a zone for pickup drop off? And the bike rack question, I believe Shauna touched base on earlier, but this regarding the any adjustments to Normandy Street, when we had our preliminary conversations with BTD and Public Works, we were more concerned about, or at least we were trying to identify potential crossings and how to make the crossing safer. We didn't discuss with them potentially altering traffic patterns, but it's something that we can ask or at least present to BTD and Public Works and see what the feedback is. I believe there is a proper community process for making such requests, and if that's something that the community feels strongly about, I definitely think it's something that should be raised, at least, in the more voices that BTD hears about it, I think the more support behind that there. I'm sure BTD will make some considerations, but I can't speak for BTD as they're not here at the moment, but we can at least let them know that there's interest in converting that to a one-way and see what feedback comes from that. As I mentioned, we will go through a public improvement commission process, the PIC process for making any adjustments to the right-of-ways. And that could be something that can be added in there for review by BTD and Public Works for their approval. And just to remind everyone that there will be bike racks, as Shauna had alluded to. The next question I see here is, will there be space for training for teens to help get jobs?
Is that, oh, so the, again, the spaces are flexible, and we partner with a variety of organizations, right? We ourselves don't do the training, but we partner with a number of entities. And we are also the City of Boston, capital C, City of Boston's largest employer of SuccessLink youth. Over the course of between our summer hires, which is almost 800, and our school year hires, BCYF itself employs, through the Office of Youth Employment and Opportunities, nearly 1,000 teens every year. So the center itself will be a place of training where we'll be hiring kids, again, from SuccessLink or teens. And we're happy to work with our nonprofit entities and different partners to bring trainings into the community center. But again, the space itself, right, the programming we can make happen, the space itself is there. And if it's flex space, we can open it up to multiple opportunities. There was also a question about toddler age, activities like dance and gymnastics. Again, we're looking to the community to what you want. We're not going to be able to provide every activity that folks want, but we want to be able to provide activities for a variety of ages. The things that are definitely in our sweet spot, we do sports and we do swim. We provide it for those age groups. We have a variety of centers that have dance programming. I think we only have a couple that do gymnastics. So we're always, looking to bring in different activities, but at some point we got to figure out, right, where we prioritize. But more importantly, to Council Worrell's point, we want to be able to provide programming and activities for all ages.
Thank you, Commissioner. There are a few more questions in the chat that I will get to. I just wanted to stop and at least reach out to the interpreters. If there are any questions coming from the interpretation room, at least give a chance to ask right now and then raise your hand so that we could give that opportunity to speak. If they just need some time to gather the questions, I'll use the two next questions from the chat to at least provide some time for the interpreters to gather the questions. With that said, the next question that pops up for me here is, can we talk more about accessible sports programming?
Sure. So we have a partnership with an organization called Adaptive Sports, and they presently only operate out of the Tobin Community Center. And so it's soccer, hockey, and basketball. I want to say volleyball, but I think right now it's just those three. And it's open to anyone. And the devices that they use to, again, lift people who are, paraplegic, hemiplegic, quadriplegic into they look like little go-karts right? So the actual devices that they use to engage to participate in the sport take up a lot of space, which is why we're building a large storage in the gymnasium to be able to house them. The reason adaptive sports can't operate out of any of other sites is because they would need a large trailer and a lot of coordination and logistics to move the equipment from one site to the other. Even bringing the equipment from our basement space at the Tobin upstairs every Saturday, it's 2 hours. So we're creating space upstairs. And so as we move forward, there's an opportunity to build in the space and be able to offer adaptive sports at more of our facilities. The other thing is that we have help me out, Brett, is it 0 grade entry or 0 entry?
Zero barrier entry.
Thank you. 0 barrier entry into the pool. And so that is also basically creating accessibility for people either in devices or people who have, challenges or difficulties moving. So they're able to just walk into the pool. And that includes parents. If you have a baby or a child, you kind of just wade into the pool and right into the shallow end.
Thank you, Commissioner. The other question that I had pop up is regarding the lights in the gym. Will the gym be like the Burke Gym, where the lights are constantly on, impacting neighbors, with Old Field Road being very close to the proposed location for the gym at the Grove Hall Community Center?
So Robertson, I can answer that one, which is to say we will have modern lighting controls in the gym that will be set based on when the gym is occupied, the lights will be on, and if it's not occupied, the lights will go off. That's part of our overall sustainability strategy to minimize energy use in the building. But also there are modern energy codes that require that. We also want to be very mindful of our neighbors on Old Fields Road and make sure that the impact of the community center is mitigated. And that's going to be, as Shauna was starting to explain a little bit earlier, through plantings along Old Fields Road. Once we start looking into the building design, it'll be thinking about where windows are on that side of the building and where they aren't. So that we're not getting, even when the gym is occupied at night, especially in the winter hours when it gets dark pretty early, that we're not having a lot of light trespass into the neighbors. So those are things that are going to be developing as we continue the design process. But the last consideration is we also want to make sure that there's a lot of natural light in the gym so that it's a comfortable place, it's a welcoming, it's a joyful place to be, and also one that is doesn't rely on electricity and electric light throughout the day to be useful.
Thank you, Brett. There is one question I received in Cape Verdean Creole. Unfortunately, I'm hoping I can translate it before our meeting is up so I can ask the question. But in the interim, I still want to put some hands up if there are any other questions or any concerns. I do want to say that this is not the only opportunity to provide feedback in the interim. I can also be reached directly via my email or through the link that you see on the screen there. There'll be a feedback section on that page, which gets back to the design team so that we can definitely, when we definitely do respond, we do get back to anyone who does submit feedback or questions. So I highly encourage it and also ask everyone to share it with those who weren't able to attend today's meeting. This has been a great turnout. It's not over. I don't want folks to think that it's over. I'm just reminding everyone that this is not the only opportunity and that this has definitely been great feedback as we work to make this a site that's catered properly to the community.
And Robertson, maybe while we're giving everybody a chance to think about their last questions, we can also take a minute to plug our pop-up event this Saturday at the Vine Street Community Center. It's going to be at 11 a.m. and we'll have lots of fun activities for people to do, people of all ages. So bring your kids, bring your adults. We want to hear your input. It'll be a chance to interact with us a little more one-on-one, and we can hear your feedback, and you can take part in some of the activities that we have planned. So hope to see many of you out there, and also please spread the word to your friends and your neighbors who weren't able to make it tonight.
Thank you, Brett. All right.
I also want to remind everyone, you can find this recording afterwards and all previous recordings and meetings listed on our website. And you don't have to remember it all. If you just go to boston.gov, go to the little search feature there and just type in BCYF, it'll take you to our landing page. So it's boston.gov / BCYF, or boston.gov, and just again, search BCYF, and recordings, meeting notes, and the flyer for the meeting are also on there. Thank you.
Thank you. Elsa, I see you have your hand up. The floor is yours.
Sorry, I asked a question in the chat, but I sent it to Mike Kozu individually by mistake. The last speaker, in answering the question about lights going off to the neighboring Oldsfield, speaking of energy saving, do you plan on incorporating any energy saving measures like solar, etc.?
Yes, I can answer that. So we are making the rooftop solar ready. The way the city incorporates solar panels into their projects is it's handled by a slightly separate department than the construction, but we're taking every step to make sure that the rooftop is solar ready. And maybe taking a little bit step back from that, we have pretty high sustainability goals for this building. It will be LEED certified. It will be fully compliant with the stretch energy code, but even above and beyond that, the city has some pretty stringent and progressive requirements around sustainability and minimizing energy use. And so we're taking a lot of different steps to incorporate that. And I think maybe in a future meeting, we'll set aside some time to kind of go through all of those, because they're quite lengthy and robust, and we'd love to share them with everybody, because we're really proud of all of the different things that we're doing to make this building as sustainable as it can be.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for the question.
All right. I think we've covered all the questions that have come through the chat, and I'm very appreciative of everyone who's raised their hand and said something today. We appreciate the engagement. We appreciate the feedback. There are no other questions or concerns. I would love to wrap up and let everyone get back to their evening.
Robertson,
I
Robertson, I
think I
see
might have missed
Mike's
one.
got his
Mike,
hand up.
Mike has his hand
Oh.
up.
Thank you. Sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
Sorry, and we could be brief and have a more future discussion on traffic and parking. I think that neighbors will want to really weigh in on the traffic and parking plan, especially those who live nearby. We know some of the tenant associations that live on Washington Street. We know the Oatsfield residents who are kind of impacted, and we also have Little Road residents who live right next to the Burke who are impacted by the parking and over parking and deliveries that go on to the supermarket and to the pizza shop as well. So just want to kind of flag it. I know others on here will have comments, and again, just we encourage people just to kind of send their feedback into you, and we should schedule more time to talk about the traffic and parking.
I agree, and I think that'll be an ongoing conversation, especially as we have more conversation with BTD and Public Works about what's being proposed here. So I agree with you, Mike, and I believe there'll be opportunities to continue to have that conversation, and we look forward to it. Well, this has been a great turnout. I'm very happy with the amount of folks that we've gotten today. And we hope that you continue to come back to the next opportunities to speak on and discuss this project. As always, if you need more information, the link is on the page. There are no other questions at the moment. I see nothing in the chat, and I do not see any hands raised at this moment. But I would be open to adjourning the meeting tonight, and look forward to sharing more with you all in the future.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you and good evening.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good evening, everyone.